Hey, Justin, welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here. I've been really looking forward to chatting with you today.
Nate, thanks for having me on.
Awesome. So, hey, for anyone who doesn't know about you and your work with EMFs and athletic performance and sleep, can you just give us a little bit of background on who you are and kind of how you got to this point, Justin?
You bet. I'm an athleticism performance coach, Nate. I started athleticism.com almost 30 years ago working with amateur and professional athletes. I do nerve work, fascia work, coordination work, all for sports performance and treat concussions. Over a decade ago, what I saw was our athletes breaking down from wearable technology. And so one of them in particular, one of the strongest, fittest guys, came in and said, Justin, I have pain in my wrist. I said, where? And he pointed right to where his smartwatch was. And I said, well, take that radiation off your wrist. Because that was literally just after that period of time where those Fitbits were being recalled. So he takes the watch off, pain goes away. That was the moment where I knew we had to dive into how we're designed, how we're electromagnetic beings, how we're one with nature, and how different the non-native waveforms are to us. And that's what brought me into rolling out EMF Rocks and looking to nature to solve it with our grounding bags.
Okay, so this became a project that you're working on right now based off of data you saw with your athletes and how to get them to perform better was kind of the impetus for all of this.
Definitely.
Okay. So what do you think of my headphones? You like them?
Yours are corded. They're not so bad. You
Okay.
know what? Like we talked about, I have corded headphones and I'm super EMF sensitive. So basically, I prefer not to talk with them and I can still hear you. And then I have a really good mic and it's all hardwired. But even something that's hardwired, I can feel the resonance. And if I'm doing these several hours a day, I prefer not to have them directly on.
Interesting. So I want to talk a little bit about like what are EMFs, why are they bad, how can we avoid them? But I want to jump right ahead and say like I obviously putting like a Bluetooth wireless like earpiece into your ear is probably not the best. But what's like how bad would you say those are compared to a wired headphone? Should we do wired headphones or should we do like the EMF blocking headphones that are like piped in and have the special coating on the outside?
Yeah, I mean, I would lean in on just hardwired and then use our grounding bags to support. So EMFs are electromagnetic fields. They can be native or non-native. The challenge is the non-native ones are polarizing. They're a different waveform. They're one directional. And that's just not how we're designed to rev. So they disrupt our energy field, which then disrupts the chemistry of the body. So if someone's wearing them, hours out of the day, for years on end, it's just a slow cook process.
Got it. Okay. So obviously electricity has been around for a long time. What's the difference between the electricity that, we invented back in the like early late or late 1800s or whatever, and kind of the some of the EMF fields that we're getting from more modern technology, the 5Gs, and I would imagine we're getting a lot from like electric vehicles, that things along those lines that are just so
Yeah,
now integrated into our life and our homes and
definitely.
everything.
Definitely, Nate. You're so right. That the year that we introduced electricity in our homes was 1889. And since then, all forms of disease, cancer, suicide, diabetes, Alzheimer's disease, which is classified as class 3 diabetes, and and then cardiovascular disease and infertility have all gone up on the bar graph. Now, the thing is how we measure these non-native waveforms and regular waveforms are through waveforms. We measure the speed of the wavelength. So all the non-natives are one directional or they don't work. And the electricity is a slower bandwidth, 50 to 60 hertz. And let's convert that to a wave per second. It would be like 50 to 60 waves per second. A dirty electricity would be in the 4,000 to 100,000 waves per second. And then the wireless signals are in the 50 million to billions of waves per second. So there's a 10-0 plus delta between electricity stressors of milligauss and then the wireless stressors. But the big component is all of those are disruptive because they're a polarizing one directional waveform that causes a vibration and disrupts our mitochondria.
Okay. I understood most of the words you said. But where do I get dirty electricity? Is that the stuff that my neighbor's making in his like bathtub?
Dirty electricity is that middle bandwidth, and it's not there, it's static in the line, and that's where we get the static. So when you're measuring, it's more of a pulsing static field. And so when you can create dissonance in something, it's a pulsing that will do it, or static that'll do it. So dirty electricity seems to be one that people break down really quickly from, and you can get that from solar panels. Dirty electricity comes from solar. It comes from the batteries of the solar storing the electricity and giving you your requested amount when you're requesting it. It's similar to a dim switch. It's similar to LED lights that have transformers in it that give you the requested lighting that you're wanting. You can also get it from bad wiring out in and outside your house. If a rat ate some of the lines and the signals going in and out of a junction don't meet, you'll get dirty electricity. And we get it sitting in electric cars from the battery of electric cars storing that electricity. So there's a lot of ways that dirty electricity comes into play.
Okay. How much of a problem are EMFs? Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I feel like there's probably some people thinking like, yeah, I should probably wear my headphones a little bit less. Yeah, like I guess that's an issue, but how much attention should we be paying to the EMFs in our life, in our home, in our cars?
Well, right now, I'll go on record as saying in the electromagnetic radiation, all the non-native waveforms from electricity to the wireless signals are hands down, without a shadow of a doubt, the number one stressor on our bodies that we're all going through right now. Zach Bush, MD, will say it's glyphosate, from the herbicide and pesticide being our foods, our seeds dipped in it, sprayed on our foods, all that. He say that because we have 40 years of glyphosate being sprayed, on our food. But we have 140 years of electricity research, and it's all in the book, The Invisible Rainbow by Arthur Furstenberg.
Gotcha. Because I was going to ask you, you mentioned a lot of like diseases, obesity, Alzheimer's, diabetes, all those going up in the 19th century. And I think a lot of times people are not looking at EMFs as a culprit there. They're looking at the seed oils, the highly processed foods, the sugars, the glyphosates, things like that. What percentage would you say like we should be like looking at with some of like the food process, like the processed foods that we're eating right now versus some of these EMFs we're getting from our devices?
Well, I don't know about percentages. I mean, they're all culprits for sure. They're not enhancers in any way, shape, or form. I feel we've been lied to in every major industry. Auto industry, electric cars are going to save the world. Well, no, you're using more electricity, and you're saying let's reduce the usage of electricity to use an electric car. So that makes no sense. I mean, whether it's the dental industry, put mercury in your mouth, it's the only place you're allowed to put it. Everywhere else, you have to toxically dispose of it properly. I mean, the list goes on and on as far as in pharma, drugs are health, shots are health. No, that's not true either. And then we go into the agriculture. Modifying GMO foods are great. It'll feed more people. They're great for us. No, it's not great. Dipping seeds and pesticides to have less buds. No, that's not a great idea because it's not great for us. So literally across the board, all these industries have lied to us, and I could continue going on, but those are just obviously a few. So what I do know is if you are eating clean and doing biodynamic regenerative farming and sourcing clean foods and reducing the chemicals that you put on your skin, from sunscreens to deodorants to soaps to shampoos to dish soap to laundry soap, all that, you can kind of reduce those endocrine disruptors. But Nate, we've never seen ever in the history of mankind our entire electromagnetic blanket of an atmosphere be radiated at this level. There's never, ever been a time. where we've had this amount of radiation. So let me share this back with this invisible rainbow. In 1889, we introduced electricity in the homes. Before that, they called the flu because it would fly in and fly out with cosmic shifts, with atmospheric pressure shifts. Because they called it influenza, it was under the influence of the stars as to when we would get sick, because there were pressure shifts in our atmosphere. So solar flares, full moons, everyone's REM patterns are disrupted during that time, and people adapt when they need to at the level they're capable. That's what we saw all before then. And ever since that period of time, the flu was here to stay. It became seasonal once electricity hit the homes. And then every major electrification of non-native waves are directly correlated with a lot of people getting sick. 1918, radio waves were rolled out. Hong Kong flu, satellites were rolled out. World War II, radar. And then everyone knows the last several years, what did they roll out? 5G. So to me, there's no scratching your head on this whole thing that the electromagnetic radiation is by far the number one stressor and a huger percentage of challenges, because right now we live in electrical boxes and we're all electricians. We're carrying routers in our hands all day long with our cell phones.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, we're going from screen to screen, right? You spend your day looking at the medium screen. You go home and look at the big screen and alternate looking at the small screen. Yeah. You drive home in your car that's got electrical. You got solar on top of your house. Sounds really like depressing, to be honest with you. Like, so I guess two questions. Can you talk a bit about what are these EMFs actually doing to us? Because I feel like with the glyphosates and some of the seed oils, we can see, okay, they're impacting our mitochondria, they're building up in our body. Are these EMFs just suppressing our natural immune function, our energy levels? Like, what are they doing to us? And then obviously you have a lot of ideas on how to avoid those or fix those issues.
Yeah, we'll get into that a little bit later in the talk, but this one's a big answer. So Dr. Martin Paul out of Washington State discovered that the voltage-gated calcium channels break down from non-native EMFs, electromagnetic radiation. Even if it's in milligauss, like even low-level frequencies, low-level radiation, we still break down. So the voltage-gated calcium channels, those are four big words. That means that's the gateway for our cells to derive energy. So right out of the gates, that's disrupting our ATP production, our energy production. With that, we see it's an endocrine disruptor, it's an oxidative stress, it calcifies our pineal gland. We don't get into the deep restorative sleeps. So it's messing with our endocrine system, which mess with our hormone production, especially when we're sleeping. 2.45 gigahertz, Nate, is the same as the lowest bandwidth, I should say, the lowest bandwidth that destructures water. So we are literally dehydrating us at the body level, at the cellular level, and our environment at records that we've never seen. So those are the first catalysts that we see break down. From there, there's level 1, 2, and 3. Level 1 is all cognitive challenges, lack of focus, memory, anxiety, behavioral challenges, fatigue, headaches, ringing in the ears, lack of sleep. Then we go into level 2, bloody noses, non-trauma concussion symptoms, nausea, vomiting, seizures, muscle twitches, rashes on the skin. We saw all those in the Havana cohort. Several years ago, it was the first attack of U.S. embassy workers on foreign soil with microwave radiation. And then, Nate, you go into the bigs: cancer, suicide, diabetes, Alzheimer's, cardiovascular, and infertility, all the ones that I mentioned before.
Wow. Okay. So I'm going to sell my house and move to the woods. But aside from that, what can we do?
Yeah, there's a lot you can do. First off, you have to develop awareness protocols and usage protocols. So the stuff's not going away. I don't want to fear everyone. There's a physics component where the cool factor is we can convert these one directional waveforms into something that's unpolarized, that distribute equally in every direction. That's really cool. That's physics. So how do we do that? Well, if you're a Shaolin monk and you're breathing and you're doing your meditation, you can do it just innately, which is really cool. But most of us don't have those powers to do that. So we got to get out in nature and use nature's help. So we get grounded by nature, touch a tree, have a picnic, get into bodies of water, just get outside in the sun. And I'll share with you how our bodies recharge in those ways. And then when you're inside, use our grounding bags, and that'll help create a coherence, inside.
Okay. So this, like, I mean, without getting super technical, you've mentioned polarization of the waves a few times. You're saying that like the dangerous ones are one directional. And then if we want to make them safer or like, I guess, not impactful on us, we want to make them omnidirectional and have them going in multiple directions. Can you explain that to me like I'm five?
When you drop a pebble into a pond, Nate, you're right above the pond, you drop a pebble straight down in a perpendicular. Does the splash go equally in a circular resonance out in every direction?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Why is that?
I'm gonna go with a broad answer and say physics.
Right. Well, definitely, because the physics of the framework of we're made on scalar waves that are unpolarized that distribute equally in every direction. If it were a one directional broadcast, it would be a one directional waveform. But that's just not how our universe works. So they didn't say stay 6 to 8 feet away, Justin's right ear. They said stay 6 to 8 feet away from everybody. So same as if we're earthing, I'm not getting grounded in this spot and then out of the Schumann resonance in this spot. There's a resonance that's equal in every direction. And then same as the sunlight, it distributes equally in every direction. I'm at a window right now. You can still see all this light behind my hand. Why is that? Well, there's refraction going on, but it's an unpolarized wave. It's not a laser dot where you just see the dot end on this. It's not one directional. So those are examples in lots of different ways of the difference between something that's unpolarized and polarized, or something that goes equally in every direction versus just one direction. So the framework of our entire universe, there's a name for those waveforms. They're called scalar waves. That's the name for every living organism's resonance that they have is based on a scalar wave. It's a waveform that's unpolarized, and every living being is energy, and that's how we comprise of. So if you go to a medical doctor and they do any type of scan on you, what technology do they use to scan you?
That's right.
Waveforms. Waveforms. The ionized radiation, they'll use radiation. They're waveforms. They're using, what is it, EEGs for your head. They'll use X-rays. They'll use CAT scans with CT scans. They'll use whatever they use. They're all based on waveforms. Those are just one directional, and they're in different speeds.
So it sounds like getting outside is probably one of our first offenses against the EMFs from our modern society. You mentioned earthing, getting in bodies of water. How does that work? And does it carry over after we get out or get off the dirt?
Yeah, definitely, because it's recharging your body battery. So if you eat something, you're not just full for 1 second. It might be full for hours, right?
Mhm.
Or drink something. It's something that stays with you and recharges us. So Eileen McCusick says it best. She talks about the body being a body battery. Are you familiar with her work?
I'm not, no.
So she has this incredible sound healing, sound tune fork biofield healing. So she can heal your energy field through tuning forks. And what she says is that because our body is a body battery, we get a negative charge from the earth, and we pull those ions. We get the electrons that support our electron transport chain that give us energy. And those are unpolarized resonance of the Schumann resonance. We get the energy from the sun because we're a holograph of light, and we get lots of nutrients from the sun. We get it from the food, hopefully, and the minerals from it as well when we source clean food. And then we get more minerals and structured water and the conductivity all from water. So if we're drinking proper water that has structure, that's alive, like mountain spring water, that gives us minerals and then has all those elements really conducting each other, because we're essentially a body battery. We're a capacitor. We emit a resonance and we take in resonances. And so if we're missing any one of those five elements, Nate, we open up our body for a gateway for challenges or dis-ease to occur.
What's the minimum effective dose then for some earthing or grounding, just putting your feet on the ground early in the morning?
I don't know if there's any minimum. It's just you can't get enough good.
Mm.
The minimum would be is how full of your reservoir are you? So if you hadn't been outside for a long time, you might need a little more to recharge. But the second you're touching that earth, you're gonna get a charge from it. Yeah, the second you sip that water, your body will start to utilize it. So it's gonna be start to feed your soul with it more than you've ever, because we've never been radiated like this. So I'm probably one of the living, breathing, walking ambassadors of being grounded by nature. I walk the dog for an hour every morning, and I'm in the ocean at least once or twice a day, no matter what time of the year, what the temperature is, 10 minutes to an hour, I'll be in it. And then I'll be playing beach volleyball barefoot on the sand as well, walking the dog at night. I'm literally doing all that I can, to get the resonance of nature, sitting outside on the lawn, having picnics, all that.
It's a dumb question, but obviously touching dirt, touching grass, that's going to give you that grounding of the earthing. But what about like staying on a rock or like pavers that are touching the dirt or concrete? Are we getting any sort of resonance from that?
Definitely, just not as quickly, but because the water components in concrete, you'll still get it. Tiles are great conductors. Rocks are also, conductors as well. So if you're rock climbing, you're going to be getting grounded every time you touch a rock. So definitely, and those are, whether it's dirt, grass, or touching a tree, hugging a tree, if that's your thing, just get out there. And the bodies of water obviously are so important. Rivers, lakes, oceans. Really, even just putting your feet in it will change your entire mood and energy throughout the day, because there's science behind it. It's not just, oh, I went to Hawaii and was sitting on the beach for a few days and I feel great now. Well, yeah, you didn't have stress, but there's reasons behind the sunlight and the resonance and the ionic charge of the earth and the water.
Obviously, you're extremely passionate about this. You've dedicated your life to studying it. And I'm sure that's because of the effects you're seeing, with your earlier work on athletic performance. Can you talk a bit about what you've noticed as a difference between athletes who do the earthing and grounding, recharge their battery versus those that don't?
Yeah, what we're seeing is literally chronic dehydration with our athletes. And so when someone's pulling something, they're pulling their fascia, they're getting injured. So we'll see injuries break down. We'll see that chronic dehydration, lack of performance. We'll see their chi down, so they'll make unforced errors. They also will see blood sugar, glucose spikes, because EMF messes with your glucose levels. So any cognitive stuff that you'll see professionals make unforced errors, it's because they're too inundated with stressors all in their environment. So the key is to rehydrate with diatomaceous earth, which has silica in it. And silica, is what our body's comprised of. And then remineralize with all zeolites and all those great minerals. Also, Irish sea moss is great, all the cell salts as well. The combination between the two is what just me over 50 seen just with my performance. And I used to cramp when I would get into bed after playing all day, just go for a big stretch in bed and contract everything, and then get a cramp somewhere. I don't get cramps anymore because I'm not in that chronic dehydration state again.
Interesting. Okay. And so actually, I worked at a pool store for years, and we used diatomaceous earth in our pool filters. But I never heard of that as a way of rehydrating. I always look more at like the electrolytes sodium, potassium, magnesium, that sort of thing. Um, are those like secondary once you've established like a baseline with the DE?
Yes, the minerals, well, they couple each other. So you want to get the fascia. So Human Garage talks about this. It's a self-healing fascial maneuver system. And so because the body is energy and water and silica, and it works as a pressured system, if you have pressure on these certain areas, the fascia will create fascial adhesions, essentially injuries. And when you have that pressure system be able to have interplay and elasticity in the fascia with concentric, eccentric movements and explosiveness, endurance type situations, you don't see those injuries come into play. So you need both of them. The silica, we're about 20% silica. So we're energy, water and silica. That's what our body's comprised of. So when we feed that back into it, essentially what it is, crushed seashells. That's what diatomaceous earth is. So we got to get that back in our system and then get the minerals back in from a lot of different ways as well.
What about baking soda? Is that a I know that's like sodium bicarbonate. Would that be something similar to the diatomaceous earth? I know, even though it's not silica.
No, it's a little different. That one people use for a lot of other reasons.
Okay. I've been messing around with that before training. I've been feeling pretty good with it, but also I always feel pretty good. So it's hard to have like a baseline. I'm not really testing any specific metrics either. Okay.
Yeah,
Interesting.
but how you feel, to me, this is, Nate, that's a huge part. Like just understanding how you feel. If you're saying you're feeling pretty good with it, like that's a big thing. What I want to encourage everyone to do is get back to knowing how you feel. You just said it. You're listening to your body. You're not looking at a smartwatch telling you how you feel or how you slept or how many steps you took or how great of a maneuver you did when you're doing jujitsu. Like you need to know that. You need to connect to God, get grounded by nature, and know how you feel every day. And we got to get this next generation and our generation out of the meta universe and something telling us how we feel. Because that's just people get stuck into that routine. When we work with professional athletes, I don't test them every day. We do a baseline, maybe a midpoint and an endpoint, and that's it. We've gotten tricked into the marketing of having radiation on us to test us daily for everything we do, and it's not enhancing for us.
I wear an Aura ring, and I was finding myself checking it when I woke up, and like being like, "Oh, I guess I slept poorly. I guess I have low energy today." So I've had to stop doing that, and I only check it like in the late afternoon or before bed to see what my previous night's data was, because I was finding myself being impacted by the readouts on that, which are usually fairly accurate, but are not truly indicative of how I'm doing.
Well, and that's what I would lean in on too, is to put it on airplane mode. I mean, I really, that's Bluetooth right next to your head. If you sleep with your hand next to your head, that's right next to your brain. Let me go back to these brainwave states. When we're sleeping, Nate, our brainwave states are 1 or below 1 to 8 hertz or waves per second. That's when we're in a delta or theta brainwave state. That's when you're getting your deepest, most restorative sleep and replenishing your body in ways that they're designed to replenish. When we're in the flow state for performance, we're in an alpha brainwave state. Our brainwave states are like 8 to 13 hertz or waves per second. So that ring on your finger is upwards of 2.45 gigahertz. That's 2.45 billion waves per second. And if it's not, if it's a little less, because it's in the MAGA range, megahertz range, that's in the millions range. So megahertz means millions and gigahertz means billions of waves per second. So even if it's still in a lower, you're still about 10 zeros faster than how your brain in your body is wanting to sleep, rev, and optimize. So I would encourage you to get rid of the wearable tech. If you want to track stuff, track it again once every month or two, but not on a daily basis.
Interesting. Okay. That's
Yeah. What happens, Nate, is our brain, what it does is it goes into a twilight sleep. And if we're not getting these deep restorative sleeps, our brain waves our brain tries to figure out what that bandwidth is that's pinging it. So it doesn't get into that deep restorative sleep. And that's really the challenge with Wi-Fi being on, electricity being on in your bedrooms. So get an outlet timer and have your Wi-Fi turned off at night. Get an electrician to put a timer on your electrical panel so all the electricity in your bedrooms go off at night. Any wearable tech is on airplane mode and off, and I would just throw it away, but never use it. I mean, and then all cell phones charged in the other rooms on airplane mode, and then in other rooms and off for sure.
That's some great actionable advice there. Um, I wanted to real quickly go back to the diatomaceous earth. What's the protocol on taking that? How much should we be taking, and for how long?
Oh, start with a little bit because it can upset your stomach a little bit. So you got to build up to it. I take a lot of it. I'll take big tablespoons a day, like 2, 3, several of them a day. But start a little bit. They're anti-parasitic. They're great for fleas, and on dogs. There's a lot of usage for diatomaceous earth, but for us, just start off with a little bit and then start building up on it. And I haven't taken too much of it, put it that way.
Okay, got it. So you also have a product called EMF Rocks. Can you talk a little bit about that, what those do?
Yeah. So Nate, everyone looks to nature to get grounded, right?
Right.
Yeah, so did I. So what we did is when we started seeing these athletes break down, I knew that nature had the answers, and I knew it was in crystals, but I didn't just know which ones. And so shungite, amethyst, black tourmaline, all the other known crystals, they have magnetic properties in them, and those are great, but they just weren't strong enough. I'm a applied kinesiologist. I do muscle testing. These products weren't testing strong enough. And so I was actually started in that space and selling somebody else's products, and then one had copper in it with crystals. And I started metering homes. And so this is over a dozen years ago. I'm practitioner going into people's homes to identify the stressors and find all this stuff out. So I got a reputation. So I had doctors calling me from all around saying, hey, what are you using? Well, one of them was using the crystals that we use now. And I said, well, tell me about them. He goes, well, Justin, they have moisture in them. They're exponentially stronger than the stuff that you're using. They have moisture with magnetic properties. You have to keep them sealed. And when you put them together like this in our grounding bag, they will help you sleep up to 60% deeper. So I first started testing them. My wife was going through early menopause, and she was waking up every night with night sweats. And her menstrual cycle stopped for 3 months straight. The second I loaded our house up with the grounding bags, her cycle returned, no more night sweats, and she was sleeping through the night.
Wow. Okay. And then
So yeah, that was it for me. I'm like, this is insane. Can I get the resource and bring it to market? He said, yes, I'm retiring, go for it. And then now EMF Rocks are one of the leading natural EMF protection products sold through doctor clinics all around the country.
Wow. And you can just go to emfrocks.com if you're looking for more information or want to pick some of those up. At first I was like, that's a weird website. I thought you were against EMF, but then I got it. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
rocks, not rocks.
Yes.
Cool. So you can improve, you mentioned improving sleep by like 60%. Is that like in terms of quality of the delta waves? Is that in terms of length of time spent in NREM and REM sleep? Well, how do you measure that?
In deep sleep.
Okay.
Yeah. So Dr. Rodney White did a third-party test for 3 months. His deep sleep improved about 60% consistently. And which was crazy because no one tests stuff. Pharma doesn't test stuff for more than 1 minute, but we did 3 months with him. He's had disrupted sleep, obviously, from EMF for years and has looked at different products. So he was so shocked that it was working so well. He kept testing and testing, and finally he's like, okay, this stuff is working so well. what we did is he regrounded it a couple of times, like each month, well, actually once each month. And so he put the grounding bag just as is. You keep it sealed. He put it outside on the lawn for about 15 to 20 minutes. And he would bring it into his room, and his deep sleep would go back up that 5% or so that it had dropped. So the crystals kick off a resonance. They'll last 2 to 3 years. And all you need to do for maintenance is keep them out of the heat, keep them out of water, keep them sealed, and then recharge them if you want every month. And if you're in a cold climate, you can do it every several months. They're still rock, so they're still ground, but so they're still good. We have ones that we've never re-grounded outside, and I still feel they work well.
Cool. I definitely want to check that out. I do want to, I do like testing stuff using my Aura ring. I like to do little 30 days experiments. So I don't know, would that throw it off if I'm still wearing tech at night?
No, it'll create that coherence that you're looking for.
Okay,
So that's the way to test it.
cool.
Yeah, so do that. So yeah, I'd encourage you to do that for sure. And we'll send you a care package.
That'd
So
be
you have
amazing.
some products. But yeah, I would love that. And that's what I encourage everyone to do. I mean, the market's spoken. You look at our website under the product section, there's like literally endless amount of testimonials on it. And then we sell them through the doctors. So they do their tests, and then they're testing their clients, and then their tests are cleaner. They're getting cleaner readings on their patients because there's not static interference in their testing. And it's just been such a blessing for so many.
Wow. Okay. This is really powerful. And a lot of this stuff is not things that I would have really thought about. I just kind of accept that technology's here and we're using it. And I'm putting my phone to my ear and wearing my AirPods and all that stuff. So it's good to kind of recenter on what's important, why these things matter, and what they can do for us long term. So I feel like you've given us a lot of actionable solutions between the grounding and the earthing and the EMF rocks. But before we wrap today, anything you want to leave us with?
Yeah, well, two things. First off, just avoid driving electric cars at all costs. It's not great for you. It's 18% lower testosterone because you're sitting on a massive battery. And then again, you're using more of the grid to use the vehicle. There's no infrastructure there. There never will be. I believe it's a fad. And it's, you already see Japan moving away from that into hydrogen. You see the auto industry moving into hybrids because people don't want to wait an hour to an hour and 45 minutes to charge it. They're heavier, they're fire hazards, they can lock you in the car, they can shut down your car. Well, if the electricity goes out, you can't get out of the car unless you know how to. They can shut your car down at any time. I mean, the cars don't get more fuel efficient. They're filling our landfills up with acid, with dead batteries. Literally across the board, we could write a dissertation on it, but just stay with combustion right now and avoid the electric car fad for sure. And then just to end with is get grounded by nature because that's our nature. And then when you're outside in nature during the day, make sure the resonance of your home is as low and slow and as close to nature as possible, and use our grounding bags to do that.
As if you needed a reason to not drive a Prius. I feel like you drive a Prius, your testosterone's already down by 40% before you even add the battery to it. So
It is.
ju-
It's worse than a minivan.
I'm thinking about getting a minivan actually. I feel like I'd look good in one. Now that I got kids and all, driving them to soccer practice. Justin, this has been so fun. Thanks, so educational. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. I'll make sure to put some of those your Instagram profile because you're putting out a lot of good information on Instagram. Put that in the show notes as well as the EMF rocks. But man, thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thank you, Nate. Appreciate you having me on.